Hello and welcome. Welcome to another episode of Adam Answers Anything. Not because I know everything for sure, but because I love wrestling with difficult questions and I love alliteration. So that's thus the title of the show, Adam Answers Anything. The full title being Adam Answers Absolutely Anything at All. So anyway, this is I believe it's our fifth or sixth episode. And originally, I was going to do an episode on Thursday, but I had family in town, and so we spent the week with them, and it was a really wonderful time. And I decided to move it to today. I had been doing some research on when the best time to do live stream shows are, and one of the time slots that was recommended was Thursday at 9 p.m., which is okay. So I thought, okay, well, I'll try it at that time. But I think maybe next week I'll do it. It said Thursdays and then also Sundays. So I might try doing the live stream at that time. Like I've said in past episodes, I'm still trying to figure out a routine schedule for when I'm going to be doing the episodes. So if there's a time, if you regularly listen or watch to the show live, let me know if there's a time that works, for you. Like what time do you usually watch the show, or what time would you be most available to listen to an episode? And maybe that might help me kind of gauge what would be a good time to do the show on a per weekly basis. So originally, when I had scheduled the episode, I had a question that had to do with memory, but I've actually pushed that question to tomorrow. So one of the days that was recommended for doing live streams was Sunday evenings. So I'm actually going to be doing one like tomorrow, but I moved the question about memory to then, because I kind of wanted to squeeze in the question about AI for several reasons. It is a topic I'm very passionate about, and so because I didn't have a whole lot of prep work this week, it is a question I know that I can maybe talk about for quite a while. And so I decided to do the AI question because, well, it's also culturally relevant. There's a lot I know that I could personally say on the topic, and I think it's maybe a softer question than the previous questions that we've had. We've had some pretty heavy hitting questions in past episodes, and so I wanted to do a question about AI today. And specifically, the question is AI a good thing or is it a bad thing? And that is a very, very, very broad question. And I think that's okay for us because, unlike the question about free will, there is a lot that's up in the air about this question. Sure, there's a plethora of perspectives, there's a plethora of opinions, but there's really no one sort of thing that you can point to and say, well, this is the obvious answer to the question, because it's a future question, right? The question about free will is sort of like a present tense question. Do we have free will, just in a general present tense sense? But is AI a good thing or a bad thing is a future tense question, because we won't really know how that question is going to play out until the future, whenever that time may be. And maybe it's a year from now, maybe it's 20 years from now, maybe it's 100 years from now, or maybe it never happens at all. And we never really come face to face with the question because AI falls short of everything that we had expected it to do. And so that's what makes this question a little different from the free will question, even though they're both very broad questions with an endless amount of perspectives. And so just like with the free will question, I'm definitely not going to be able to be exhaustive on this question because I'm only one person with one perspective, and I've interacted with AI in one specific way. And so I'm only going to be able to answer this question in the specific way that I've interacted with AI and in the specific experiences that I had. A couple quick things before we dive in. I would love to hear what your perspective is on any question, any episode, any question. Leave your perspective, leave your comment down below, or just leave it in the chat. I would love to hear what you have to say and what your perspective is on the questions that we wrestle with in every episode. Mostly because I do a lot of talking and I would rather hear you and listen to what you have to say than what I have to say. And I would also love to share it with other people who are watching who could benefit from an alternative perspective other than my own. So feel free. I would love for you to share your perspective on any of the questions down below. Also, if you want to ask a question, there's a QR code up there in the corner. If you scan the QR code, it will take you to a Google form. And the Google form, you fill out the form, put your email, and you can write down whatever question that you want an episode to be geared around, whatever question you want an episode to be about. But you also have the option to join me on the show to wrestle with the question together. And so if you have a question that you're really passionate about, or just an idea even that you're really passionate about, go ahead and scan that QR code, fill it out. I would love to have you on the show. That is about it. Well, another thing is some of you might not know because you might not be watching this on YouTube. If you're not, I do have a YouTube channel, Sonderhouse Studios. If you go look that up on YouTube, you'll be able to find me. I have a whole bunch of videos on there about philosophy, about life, about all sorts of things. So beyond the live stream, I also do YouTube videos on various topics as well. So back to the question. I don't think this is going to be, the past couple of episodes, they've been about an hour long. I don't know if this is going to be an hour long. I think it just kind of depends on tangents that I sort of get on. But is AI a good thing or a bad thing? As with every question that we wrestle with, I think it's important to just very briefly define our terms. What do we mean by AI? Now, I think that everyone maybe has a vague understanding of what AI is, specifically because since 2020, things like ChatGPT have grown so immense in popularity that AI is very much still on the forefront of the cultural consciousness. And so I think that there is a sort of general vague idea of what AI is, but there's very different types of AI. So there's general AI, which is like the AI that people talk about when they talk about the apocalypse or they talk about Skynet. There's then there's specific AI. So there's AI that's built for a specific thing, whether it's text-based AI, image generation, video generation. There's different models that are built for specific things. But general purpose AI is more like this the when people talk about the singularity, they talk about the point at which AI surpasses human beings, and they are talking about general artificial intelligence. I think that there's more specific names. So, for example, there's general AI, which is also called strong AI, or AGI, artificial general intelligence. But there's also narrow AI, which is the one I was talking about, where it's AI that's built for a specific thing or a limited set of tasks, also called weak AI. Super intelligence is the beyond singularity point. So the beyond singularity point where AI has far surpassed human beings, it's called super intelligent, artificial super intelligence. So those are just the three broad strokes, like types of AI. I think when we ask this question, is AI a good thing? What I have in mind, what I imagine the question means is currently we have narrow AI. That's what we have. Assuming that this could possibly develop into strong AI or artificial general intelligence, would that be a good thing or a bad thing? I think that's perhaps the question. Good thing, we can define a good thing as benefit to humanity. The benefits to humanity vastly outweigh the consequences. A bad thing, obviously, being the opposite. So the consequences vastly outweighing the benefits. Now, to approach this question, I had actually had a hard time thinking of just three major points this time, which is a new thing because every episode so far we've always had three specific major points when approaching an answer to every question. But I'm going to try. The first major point I think would be, how does the culture currently think about AI? What's the ethos? What's the social atmosphere, social conversation? What do we currently think and feel about AI as a culture? And I think that if you've spent any time on social media, any time on especially platforms like LinkedIn and X and anything like that, you'll have definitely seen or at least been exposed to conversations centered around AI. And I think the conversation is very bifurcated, and it's narrow, it's separated in many different ways. So there's not just one kind of cultural perspective or cultural conversation. There's lots of them happening at the same time right now. But I think the biggest ones, the most obvious conversations that are happening is, number one, the apocalypse, which I think has always been in the cultural consciousness, way back even in the 90s when IBM's AI won a chess match. Uh, that's always been in the cultural consciousness of, oh, we made a computer do this significant thing. And so now we're going to just endlessly talk about AI taking over the world and running our economies and taking over labor jobs and like computer jobs. Uh, and it's just this either apocalyptic scenario, the scenario where some artificial intelligence is running society and something like that. That's always a part of the cultural consciousness. The second one that's part of a cultural consciousness is just apprehension, fear, and anger. There's a lot of people who don't want AI, don't like AI, have no interest in AI, and are really angry that they have sort of been forced into a world where they have to wrestle with it and figure out how to live alongside it, regardless of how they feel about it. And then the third, I think the third you could say is more like the cultural conversation is more like everyone's excited about it. They're looking into how they can use it, how you can use it to do this, or how you can use it to do that, or how you can use it to make this, and how you can use it to make that. And I think those are kind of the three very broad, general cultural conversations that are happening about AI right now. There is a lot of hype. There is a lot of, oh, your laptop has AI, your phone has AI, your dishwasher has AI, your phone has AI. Next thing you know, it's going to be your loaf of bread has AI. They're putting AI on everything and in everything the same exact way that the health food industry puts organic and paleo on everything, or they put keto on everything. Even if the thing's not really keto, they'll just put it on there. It's Whole30 approved. No hormones, no nitrates or nitrites. And the same way that the industries will use language to make a food look significantly healthier and a better choice than any of the other alternatives and competitors, the AI market's doing the exact same thing. They're puffing up all of the language that they use to talk about their products in order to sell more products, because everyone is so obsessed with AI right now. Well, we got to put AI in everything, right? You have a pencil with AI, you have a coffee cup with AI. You need your shoes, they're going to need AI. And uh, I definitely see that in as far as in consumerism, that AI has become very forefront, very front and center in the way that people are um, crafting products. And it didn't start with things like ChatGPT. It started with like Google Home and Alexa back before 2020, when they were putting Alexa in everything. You're putting Alexa in your light bulbs, and I'm surprised they couldn't put it in your paint, but they were putting it everywhere. And I would say that the ChatGPT, the sort of post 2020 AI, which is a lot. a lot more sophisticated than the Alexa or Google Home or Siri type AI, the assistant AI. Uh, I would say it started before then. They started shoving it into as many products as they could. But along with that consumerism hype, there's also just the conversational cultural hype of every big whiz with some fancy title under his or her name are giving their perspective on what they think the future of AI will be, and everyone is talking about, oh well, this is going to happen in 10 months time. It's going to be grow exponentially, and GPT-7 is going to, suddenly take over the president's office and run the country. And all of these futurists and tech whizzes, that have some sort of audience. People listen to what they say, and they have some sort of audience that listens to them. This is broadly, I would say, mostly the conversation. Almost 90% of the conversation is just this hype about the future. About, here's, like, we got to be very careful because AI is going to become super intelligent and kill all of us, and just doomsday prophecies, and talking about how the AI is growing so exponentially that within a year we're going to have artificial general intelligence. We're going to have AGI within a year. Almost every tech whiz, every TED talk, every YouTube channel with, some big tech CEO talking about AI, inevitably that's 90% of the time that's what they have to say. And I just realized my music is still really high. I'm sorry. I'm going to turn that down. That's what they have to say. And they talk about it like it's this, they talk about it like the future is obvious. They talk about it as if it's very, they talk about it as if there's no question that AGI is going to happen. They're just assuming that, oh yeah, AGI is going to happen. They just have a perspective on how it's going to happen, what it's going to look like, what it's going to do to humanity, what it's going to do to culture, what it's going to do to society. And so you have the big tech CEOs all hyping up AI and talking about artificial general intelligence is coming soon, and then you have all of the consumerism pumping AI into all of the products that it could possibly find. And suddenly I start feeling like, are we getting gypped? I mean, are we being sold something that looks like you ever see those commercials for like Burger King or McDonald's, and you see a behind the scenes video of how they actually make those advertisements for burgers and whatnot. And you come to find out that nothing about the burger in the commercial is actually real. And in the commercial, it's this plump and juicy burger patty with fresh, crisp lettuce that has, for some reason, still water all over it, and a nice cut tomato that's somehow like perfectly like cut and round, and the buns are nice and soft and like glistening somehow, and it's just falls all together, and it's like the perfect looking burger. I think Hardee's and Carl's Jr. I think do this really, really a lot, is they have just this burger that looks like, wow, this looks like Plato's description of forms if it was a burger, right? This is like the form of burger in Plato's ideal realm. Well, if you look at the behind the scenes, you're like, oh wow, they're putting like glue in this thing. They're using things that, like, it's not even a burger patty. It's something else, something leather. It looks leather. They're not even using, it's not real food. It's just made to look appetizing. It's just they're trying to sell the best version possible they can of this burger so that people will go get the burger. And I think that's obviously happening with AI. You look at every platform: Google, Runway, ChatGPT, OpenAI, uh, Kling, Pika, Luma. You look at all of the platforms, and they're selling you, or at least they're showing you, the best absolute version of their product that they can absolutely show you. So they're showing you the best videos that they've managed to generate using a text prompt. and they show you the best generation out of all of the generations that they had to make from that one text prompt in order to get one that was decently viewable. And they're showing you all of the absolute best use cases scenarios, and they're even showing you scenarios in which it's not really a usable use case. It's not something that's practical. They're even showing you things that aren't necessarily true. And what's happening with AI is the exact same thing that happens with burger commercials. is they're showing you an idealized platonic version of a burger. They're showing you an idealized platonic version of AI that's not that doesn't really translate into your everyday use. I mean, this has happened to me many times. I'll there'll be a new launch of some new model or some upgraded model of one of the AI platforms, and I'll be like, "Oh man, this is gonna be really great. Like, I'm gonna start using this." I think Google VO3 was a really good example. I just saw like so many videos, like, "Oh, this is really cool. This is really great." Suddenly, there was 100 million Bigfoot and Yeti videos on TikTok and on Instagram and on Facebook and on YouTube. Suddenly, everyone and their mother was making Sasquatch videos, and so I thought, well, I got to do this. So I got on there and I made some on my personal YouTube channel. Actually, I have like a whole handful of AI videos, but it's really difficult to make something like that's worth calling your art. Like as an artist, I wouldn't say like this represents me. Of course, I wouldn't, because using it is actually it's actually a lot more frustrating than people think, and it takes you almost just as long using AI than if you like had a team of people that were filming and shooting the video itself. Because it takes so many generations to get something that's like decently usable. And if you're not looking for something that's decently usable, you just end up with something that's just, again, it just looks like slop. It looks like a big old bowl of chili that's all just kind of mush, and all of the vegetables and meat has just kind of mushed together, and it looks indistinguishable. That's that's kind of what happens when you're just, trying to use AI in a way that makes sense to save you time and money. And so I think that is one of the things that's going on right now in culture with AI. I think that um I think it's a big I think it's a big burger commercial at the moment. And the same thing with the tech CEOs. I mean, if you think about it, there's the saying follow the money. Follow the money. It's always about money. Right now, like AI is popped onto the scene. I mean, it's been on the scene for a very long time, but it popped on the scene very dramatically around 2020 when GPT-1 was released. And suddenly, out of nowhere, it's just bam, 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 startup, 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 startup. Every entrepreneur, every 20 something, 30 something entrepreneur just decided like, oh, I got to start a business. And obviously, most of those people are people that like already had money to start a business. Um, and so they started a business, and a handful of those became very successful. And in order for them to continue to be successful, they got to keep selling their product. So of course these journalists and data scientists or computer scientists and tech CEOs, of course they're going to talk about AGI, right? They're not going to directly talk about their product because they don't because they know that people will think, oh, they're just trying to sell me their product. This tech CEO, I didn't come here to hear about their product. I came here to hear about AI. Of course, they know that. They have a whole marketing team that's doing that, right? Like, like Google has a marketing team that's trying to sell Gemini and Google Flow. Apple has a marketing team doing the same. OpenAI does. The tech CEOs, the tech whizzes, they're going to talk about AGI. They're going to talk about AI in a way that makes it look like there's this explosive exponential growth, and that it's only a matter of months, a year at the most, before we have AGI. And it's going to be so advanced that we're just going to be having, you know, virtual real life friendships and marriages and everything with these AIs, because they're just going to be so human like, and they're not going to be distinguishable from reality anymore. And of course they're going to talk like that. Of course they're going to have this very, very futuristic Isaac Asimov kind of perspective, kind of like this very, I would say, like very transhumanistic perspective about the future. Because if you can get people on that train of thought, if you can get people on the train of thought of thinking that, wow, AI is just going to really get better, so I should stay tuned in to what's going on in AI, because all of these really important people that have titles underneath their names have said these things about AI. So, well, they must be right. They must be telling the truth, because, I mean, they must know what they're talking about because they're CEOs. That's honestly most of what their goal is just to get you hooked into the narrative, hooked into the conversation about AI, so that you stay focused on it, so that you're exposed to the AI marketing scheme of AI this, AI that. And then suddenly you find yourself just subscribing to an open AI subscription, subscribing to a Google AI subscription. And you're subscribing to all these subscriptions because the big tech people with titles under their name have convinced you that AI is going to grow exponentially and you need to be a part of it. And the marketing teams have convinced you that their model is the best. And that's how the scheme works. That's how the pyramid scheme works. And along with that are just industry leaders that are talking about, like, oh yeah, here's how AI can optimize your workflow as a whatever shipping expert, or as a video editor, or as a working in marketing and advertising, or working in business and banking or whatever. Here's how AI can, and there's these gurus just talking about how you need to get on the AI train now, and if you do, you're going to be able to make money because you can optimize and just optimize your workflow, your campaigns. If you're doing marketing, you can just optimize everything, and AI will do everything for you, and you'll just be making passive income. They sell you on the idea that AI is going to be the thing that makes you money. That's what they're trying to sell you on. That's what they want to sell you on. So I say all that because, take a quick sip of coffee. I say all that because I really think that's very, very, very important to keep that in mind. I think it's very important to keep in mind that most of what you have seen, most of what you've read and been exposed to is all around just marketing. It's all about capitalism, marketing, free market. That's how a free market works and operates. It's all about getting you hooked into the narrative and then hooked into the product. That's really important to keep in mind, because when we take all of that kind of hype and we throw it away, what we're left with is a very, very reasonable outlook. Now, post 2020, I think most people, maybe I'm wrong, but I think post 2020, most people have developed a greater sense of skepticism about what they hear and what they see online, for very good reason. And so I think that has helped to serve culture, in the sense that AI slop is still very obvious at the moment. Deep fakes are very obvious. There are certainly a large part of the population that is still very easily fooled by these things, but I think the majority of the population isn't. And so I think that's a very good thing, that we're not yet at the point where we're just easily convinced and fooled by what they are showing us AI can do. And so I think that all of that marketing, all of that consumerism is really good to keep in mind, because I think it gives you a level-headed view and understanding that you don't need to get all up in arms about the hype and about don't listen to the gurus, don't listen to the tech CEOs, don't listen to the advertising schemes. Instead, listen to the people who are at the bottom of the ladder, at the bottom of the triangle, the pyramid scheme. I mean, listen to the people who are the raw consumers who are directly being affected by it. Ask them how they feel about AI. Ask them what they think about it. Um, I know that they will have many different perspectives, but I think that the perspective will, I think, be more useful to you than the hype and the craze and the mania. I happen to be one of those people that have a lot of interaction with AI. My job is I'm a video editor, I'm a motion designer. I work for an advertising agency, and I have been working there since I think ChatGPT one. And so I've been working there for a little over 3 years, and AI has had a direct impact on my industry and the attitudes and the perspectives in my industry. And one of the things that I can say is there are many general consensuses right now in the creative industry, and one of them is fear and apprehension. There are a lot of people who have a fear and an apprehension that they are going to be redundant in 5 years, maybe even less. And so there's a lot of people right now who are anxious. There's a lot of anxiety because there there is this overwhelming push and urge to, well, you have to get into the groove. Or sorry, you have to get onto the bandwagon. You need to study AI, you need to learn about AI, you need to incorporate AI into everything you say and do. You need to know AI as good as you possibly can. And it's giving people anxiety because, well, a lot of people in the creative industry were already wrestling. They were already fighting to get to where they want to be in their career. It was already competitive enough to be an artist in any meaningful way. It was already incredibly competitive because there were already millions of people trying to do the same thing that you wanted to do. And you're competing with those people in the open market. And so there was already intense competition. Well, now they're being told, well, now you also have to compete with AI. So you have to compete with AI and you have to compete with other people and AI. So not only do you have to be a really, really good video editor, like be competitive as a video editor, but now you have to be competitive with AI. And so there's another layer of expectation. There's another layer of prerequisite in order to be competitive in the market sphere, or at least feel that you're being competitive enough. And that's given people a lot of anxiety. I know it's definitely given me anxiety. Being 34, I'm going to be 35 in just a week. It gives me anxiety in the sense that I already struggle with feeling competitive enough as a video editor at my age, especially. And I wonder, I'm like, man, I should put more time into studying and practicing skills as a video editor to get even better. I should practice my skills as a motion designer to get better. Well, then I should learn new skills. I should practice my skills in Blender to become better at 3D. Well, add on top of that AI. So now it's not just that it's not just that I have a dilemma of choosing where should I invest my time, video editing, motion design, or 3D, but now I have to invest my time into AI. So now there's all this time in my day going to learning AI, which takes less time. It takes time away from me being able to learn video editing and motion design and whatnot and all those things. Now I feel like I have even less time to become competitive than I did before. And no fault of my own. And I think that a lot of people are sharing that anxiety and frustration right now. And the two main reactions to it in the creative industry are just obstinate hatred or like get on the bandwagon, buddy. Those are the two responses. If you can't beat them, join them, or like the resistance. Those are the two responses. I understand both. I find myself kind of in the middle, but I do think I lean more towards the resistance. It's because it's not that I think we need to do away with AI completely. Of course I don't think that. I think that AI is going to end up finding its place among the many very extremely useful tools that we have as creatives. But I think that as we're transitioning to that completely new cultural and economics like just future, with AI, we have to keep in mind the effects that it's having on people, on real lives and actual human beings. And we have to stay attached to what makes human content better than AI content in the first place. We have to stay attached to that. Um, one of the I think the downsides, one of the problems I think with AI right now is accessibility. And I'm mostly speaking again from a creative sphere because that's my industry. But so let's just talk about Google for example. When you sign up for Google, you get a free trial, and in that free trial, which is only a month, you get 1,000 credits. 1,000 credits is enough to make 10 VO3 videos. So let's say you have a single prompt, a squirrel is dancing with top hat. You can generate that prompt 10 times before you run out of credits and you can't generate anything anymore. Um, but you can go to Gemini and you can generate 3 videos a day using Gemini. And you can do that for a month until your free trial ends. Now, if you were to make a serious work of art, like if you were to make something serious, 10 generations, a limit of 10 generations is nowhere near enough for you to successfully make something that is noteworthy. Not in the slightest. Maybe 2 years ago, if you had VO3 2 years ago and you made a generation, it would have been groundbreaking. But AI has grown and developed and moved so fast at a pace that it takes the entry level to be noteworthy for creating something with the help of AI has grown and grown and grown to such a point that it will require probably like 100 to 200 generations of a single prompt, with as well as like fine tuning that prompt to come out with one generation of 5 to 10 seconds that is like usable. That's like, oh, this is perfect. This is what we want. And so that free trial is pretty useless. And maybe you can make the first 10, 20 seconds of your video, your short film that you want to make, your AI short film. Maybe you can make the first minute if you're lucky. But that free trial of Google VO is nowhere near enough for you to actually have the freedom to be creatively expressive in whatever way you want with AI. You'll have to sign up for, at the very minimum, $150 a month for Google AI Ultra. Sure, there's Google AI Pro, but that's only 1,000 credits, or was it 10,000 credits? It was I think it was 10,000 credits, 100 generations. No. It was 1,000 credits, 10 generations. I'd have to look at the specific details, but the Pro plan is not enough. Like you could maybe get 3 or 4 scenes done in a month if you get really lucky, and it would take you an entire year, maybe, probably longer, to generate the short film that you wanted to make with AI by using the cheapest plan, or by just creating new emails and getting free trials. It would take you a year. And by the time you finished, the newer, more advanced models would already be out. And your short film is no longer noteworthy or meaningful, or not meaningful, but like it's no longer like the new thing. And so what I'm trying to say is, in order to have access to AI in such a degree that you can, as a creative, freely and usefully use the tool to help you create art that you've always wanted to create, and to be able to show that art, to say, hey, people, here's the cool thing that Google Flow can do. You have to have nearly unlimited access to the model in order to use it. And the amount of money that you would need to do that, most people don't have, right? Because it's not just Google Flow. You don't just need to be paying $150 for Google Flow. You also need to be paying money for other models that help you do things that Google Flow can't do. You need to be paying money for 11 Labs so you can generate sound effects. You can generate AI voices, and you can generate music now. you need to be using something like Midjourney, which is better, which is the best for generating images, better than Google's Imagen. Um, you need other platforms in order to generate the best creative that you can generate with the help of AI. And all of the people, right? If you go on LinkedIn or Facebook or wherever, all of the artists and creatives that are making AI art, that's what they're doing. They're using all of these various platforms, all these tools. Nobody has the money. Most people, I should say, do not have the money to pay for 4 or 5 different AI platforms at the same time to create art and to feel that they're competitive in the AI field. But the people that have money have the privilege of having access to these products are the ones that are getting the views, they're getting the traction, they're getting the attention in the AI sphere, creative sphere, and people are looking at them. And the problem with that, or I should say just the problem I have with that, because I can't speak for everyone, but the problem I have with that is, what about the lowly artist that was already struggling, who has incredible story ideas, but doesn't have the money or the notoriety to use these tools in a way that they can effectively build art with? I mean, what about them? Like, what about their chances? When all the dust settles in AI, the AI kind of battle, right? Because we're still in the midst of it. We're still in the midst of not knowing how AI is going to pan out in the long run. But when the dust settles, there's going to be industries, businesses, people. There's also going to be creatives and artists whose names are the ones that are in lights as the ones that are like, wow, yeah, these are the people that have done the most cool AI enabled work and stuff like that. When the dust settles, the people that couldn't afford it are gonna be much further behind than they were before, because they don't have access. They don't have the money for it. They don't have the notoriety and the privilege. And when I say notoriety and privilege, I mean, like, the people that are getting free access to these programs, the part of like creative partner programs, they're mostly people that already have a name for themselves. They're mostly people that had already succeeded and and already had notoriety or money to get notoriety, that are getting an even greater leg up in the, I should say, race, in the flow of AI creative and AI in the creative industry. So what I'm trying to say is, I think that I don't think it's right that a creative who is a genuinely like creative person, who has genuinely good story ideas, who has genuinely good artwork, who is a genuinely good creative and talented creative, I don't think it's right that they should just be okay with having zero access to any meaningful way to use AI to help them create their art, just because they don't have the money or the notoriety. I think that again, this is just my opinion. I think that AI should be more free than it is right now. I think that it should be more free than it is right now for 2 reasons. One, because again, it will give access to people that don't have the privilege right now to have access to it. And it'll give them the potential and the possibility of actually growing and developing their skills in a realistic way with AI that will make them more competitive in the future market that's coming. So that's the first reason why I think AI, like most AI, should be cheaper or free. And the second reason is, I think that it will eliminate the consumerism aspect of AI. I think that it will do a lot to eliminate like how the conversation of AI is geared towards towards consumers. And so there'll still be the hype of, oh, you got to buy our product, but it will be less focused on, well, you got to buy a product, and more focused on, I just want to be the better model that people buy, not necessarily the one that looks the best that people will buy, if that makes any sense. And that's why I think that it should be free or cheap. There's a lot of conversation about things like like I just talked about. There's a lot of conversation around it. There's a lot of conversation about what's going to be what's going to be in place when people inevitably lose their jobs because they're not competitive enough with AI as a tool, and they lose their jobs to some person who, had the privilege of being competitive enough. And so that one person is doing all of the work um, that like a team of 5 people would do. And so what's going to happen to them when they lose their jobs? I mean, are they going to, is there a program that they could go be a part of? That's funded by, it's tax funded perhaps, where they could go and be a part of a program and learn how to use AI to do some other industry, or to maybe be more competitive in their industry. Are there programs that help people who are a bystander or a byproduct, or they're what's it called? What's the word I'm thinking of? Is there a program that people can use who have lost their jobs and their careers because of AI? Is there a program that helps them integrate into a new career and a new culture in the new AI future? I don't know. Like, is there something like that? And also, like, the people who are very hype centric right now, who are the people, there's many people out there who will say, well, you just need to get with the changing times. You either learn how to integrate AI, or you're going to be left behind. Um, and I'm just like, okay, you're not wrong. Like, you're right. I think that's certainly something that we should do. But tell that to the 40-year-old artist who was already struggling to feel competitive because the 20 somethings are out out hiring him because he's 40 years old, and he's, maybe half as competitive as he feels like he is. And so some 20 something is going to get hired instead because, well, you know, they are younger, they have a fresher mind, they have a lot more life in them than that some corporate business can suck out. And so you're telling a 40-year-old who's already struggling, who's already feeling like have reached their expiration date in the marketing, in the creative industry. You're telling them, oh well, you're out of a job. Like, you're losing your job to Midjourney that can like do your job better than you. Um, and you're telling them like they're supposed to somehow go out and figure out how to find a new job in a career field where they already felt like they were walking on thin ice as far as their marketability, and now they're even less marketable. And so now what are they supposed to do? Just go work at a factory floor? And I'm not saying that like what I'm not saying is, I'm not saying that that shouldn't happen. I think that to some degree, I think it's inevitable that it's going to happen, that people are going to lose their jobs to AI. But I think we need to really, really, as a culture, consider the consequences of people's lives and their families, and how we're going to deal with that. I mean, we need to be thinking right now as a culture of the way that we talk about AI, because there are husbands and wives and moms and dads who are all in these industries who are fearful and have so much anxiety that they're going to lose their jobs right now. And there's pervasive anxiety in our culture that no one's really talking about and no one cares about, that is a direct result of the way that AI has just been hyped and talked about. It's just been hyped and put on a pedestal and talked about nonstop. And it's just giving people anxiety because they're like, well, 2 or 3 years, I could completely lose my job. Like, what am I going to do? Like, I'm 40 years old, 45, 50 years old. What industry can I go in to provide money for my family? Like I make this amount a year, and it's just enough for us to get by right now. If I lose my job, like, how am I going to find another job where I can make enough money to support my family and provide for my family? There are more people having those anxious thoughts than you realize. And I think as a culture, we need to stop hyperbolizing AI, and we need to start thinking about the consequences of it. Those are a bunch of my rambled thoughts. Um, I'm sorry. Like I said, I didn't think this was going to turn out into like a 1, 2, 3 major point like question, because this is such a very broad question. It's a very difficult one to answer because it's a very kind of future tense question. But those are a lot of my thoughts about AI. And to sum up some of those thoughts again, I think that most of the hype around AI is just hype. It really is. I think that when the rubber hits the road, I think AI is not as impressive as the advertisements and the big tech whizzes are want you to believe it is. And so I'd highly recommend that you go find sources of the conversation that have a alternative perspective. One that I'll recommend is it's called Mind Matters News. I'll look it up here for you. It's called Mind Matters News, and I'd say it's a really good site because um, it's a balanced perspective. So Mind Matters News, it's part of the Walter Bradley Institute for Natural and Artificial Intelligence. They're very much the other side of the conversation. And so even if you disagree with the other side of the conversation about AI, I would highly recommend just giving there's a podcast too, a really good podcast. I would highly recommend giving it a browse, giving it a look, and giving it a listen. Topics, artificial intelligence. Because I think that it can be very comforting reading these articles and being exposed to a perspective that is very like opposite of the perspective that's in the cultural consciousness. And I think it's helpful because there are really good reasons and really good arguments that can be made for why there are very hard cut limits for what AI could potentially do, like what AI is even capable of. And so I think that it's really important to be exposed to those conversations because I think that it does help. It really does help give peace and alleviate that some anxiety that you might feel when all you hear about is the hype and the cataclysmic cultural and economic changes that are going to come and take place and whatnot. So I'd honestly really encourage you to go check them out, go read some of their articles. I think it's good to have the other side of the perspective. I think it's good to get a perspective of why AI is hyped. Like in what way, when we say that it's just hype, what do we mean by that? What is the true and what is the not true? And I know they have a lot of articles and a lot of podcasts where they talk about that very thing. And so I would highly recommend that. So that's most of the conversation for today. I felt like today was a little kind of all over the place. If I could sum it up, I'll try and sum it up very quickly. I'll sum it up in a couple points. Point one, most of what you hear about AI is just hype. It's just hype because it's about money. And when there's money involved, the companies, businesses, tech gurus, they're going to try and sell you the best version of their product that they possibly can, regardless of whether or not it actually works or regardless of whether or not it's actually the next best, greatest thing that they're trying to sell you. So most of it really is just hype. Second thing is we need to be considering as a culture the consequences of the way that we talk about AI. One of those consequences is that people have many people who work in any industry have fear, anxiety, and doubt about whether or not they're going to have a job in 2 or 3 years because they've been sold this, they've been listening to these tech gurus and these businesses talk about AI in such a way that it's just going to take over every single business and no one's going to have a job anymore. And so everyone's worried, like, am I even going to be here in 3 years? And so they're just filled with anxiety. We need to consider their anxiety and think about the way we talk about AI. And we need to be aware that it's causing people this intense kind of anxiety and fear. Now, what I'm not saying by that point is I'm not saying that people aren't going to be losing their jobs. People already have. And I think that many people have for the wrong reasons. That's a whole other conversation I think we don't have time for anymore. But I think that businesses and corporations listening to the tech gurus and AI companies sell them hype. I think that they have preemptively laid off people because of AI, and there are companies already regretting it, and there are more companies that will regret it. And I think that laying off people rapidly right now because of AI is a huge mistake, but it's giving people anxiety, and that should be a problem. Like we should realize that that's a problem, and it's not healthy for literally millions of people to be having to wrestle with that right now. And I think that that needs to be a part of the conversation of how we talk about AI. And the third thing is be well balanced. Be very well balanced. I think it's very important to be exposed to conversations about the other side of the argument about AI, because I think that it will help you feel at least a small sense and degree of peace. Because I know it really helps me when I log on to Mind Matters News. That's the site, Mind Matters News. Actually, it's mindmatters.ai. That's the name of the site. And when I read some articles or I listen to some of the podcasts, especially, I think it really does help me, because it really levels out all of the hype that that's just been pumped into my mind through social media and whatnot. And so the third point would be be really balanced. I think it's really important to be balanced, and I think it's going to help you in the long run and in the future. And then the fourth and final point, I would say is, don't don't be afraid to embrace it, which sounds counterintuitive to everything that I've said. But when you have balanced yourself out, when you've stopped listening to the hype, you've stopped listening to the tech gurus and everyone kind of talking about doomsday and end of jobs and everything, when you stop listening to that, and when you balance yourself out by getting the other side of the perspective, I think then you are healthy and you are ready to approach AI in a very beneficial and helpful way. And I think that you should. And again, this whole thing has not been me telling you don't use AI, it's terrible, it's don't use it, but rather it's mostly been me trying to get you to realize that there's a lot of baggage that comes with AI right now. And once we've dealt with that, I think when you come back to AI, I think it's helpful. And I think you'll realize very quickly the ways that AI can be beneficial to you in your life and the ways that it isn't. I mean, to be very honest, I would recommend doing Google searches and reading, articles and whatnot over going to AI and asking them for their opinion. Like if you're going to research something for a paper, or you're going to research it for a topic for a YouTube video or something, you could use AI to get vague ideas of how the conversation could flow through a paper or flow through a YouTube video. But to do the actual research, I would recommend you just do it like any old basic research that we've done for many, many, many years now. Because I think that's a very important, number one, that's a very important skill that you don't want to lose. And number two, um, I, I think people have been really fallen into the lie that AI is just like this glamorous new car. And I don't think it's I don't think it's any better than you doing research on your own. And I think the thing that it's really good and built for is to help you do better research on your own, not to replace your research. So anyway, I said we probably weren't going to go to an hour. Apparently I lied. Either that or I just talked too much. I'm sorry for rambling, but that's the end of the episode today. I want to thank you all for joining me and Adam Answers Anything. Again, I would love to hear your perspective. Such a broad conversation, such a broad topic. And so I would love to hear what you have to say. Leave a comment down below, or go ahead and scan the QR code over there and ask your own question. I would love to wrestle with the questions that you might have. Thanks for joining me today. Tomorrow, I will be back tomorrow. I forgot what time. It'll be in the evening for sure, somewhere between 6 and 9. But we will be wrestling tomorrow with the question of, if you lose your memories, are you the same person? Are you the same person? So thanks for joining me today. Love you guys and hope you have a